I'd first like to thank the 3C2A for having this event, the 3C4A selection committee, Tony, Albert, Diana, and the rest of the committee for all the work they did and they've done to make this award possible. It's a nice moment for me to be here as a former 3C2A athlete. My athletic counselor is in the building, Miss Wanda Wong. When I played at West Valley. It's just nice for it to come full circle and for me to now be presenting this award as Vanessa's counselor to just a wonderful young lady. Leadership, toughness, grit, resilience, these are typically qualities we use to describe the on-field, on-court accomplishments of our student athletes. But in this young lady's case, they really represent who she is as a person, as a teammate, as a big sister. And it's really been my honor to just get to know her and to work with her. And her story really represents what college athletics is all about. And it's my honor to introduce Miss Vanessa on.
I'd first like to thank Jason for nominating me and being there for me as my soccer coach. Aaron for helping me through the process and all. And Sierra as a whole, I'll explain more of how they were helpful in my life, but yeah, sorry. You'll have to forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous. Going up after those two is nervous. Alrighty, so I'm gonna start with, sorry. Okay, swear I practiced this a few times. Okay, everyone faces different obstacles throughout their lives. Some experience more and some experience less. I don't think that that's what defines someone as a person. I believe that what defines you is your approach to that and the ability to overcome it. My story begins with two young parents, my dad who had finished high school but was working, and my mom who had just turned 17 and continued to finish high school at a continuation school. After that, I had two working parents, and I don't remember much up until I was about 5 years old, and that's when my parents decided to separate. My mom moved my sister and I to Woodland, where we would live for a little while, so I started kindergarten there. And then kindergarten through second grade, we moved around a few times, so I started new at a few different schools, so I was unable to make lasting friendships within that time. Once third grade hit, I was moved back into Auburn, where we stayed and settled down. A little bit after starting third grade, my little brother was born, and my parents decided they would move back in together to raise us all as a family. My mom was the person that I looked up to. She was my best friend. I could talk to her about anything. I knew she would always give me the advice I needed, and I knew all my secrets would be safe with her. My dad took a job that required a lot of working out of town, so for long periods of time, whether it be a week or two to up to a month or so. So he was in the picture supporting us as much as he could, but it was more financially effective if he took this job on. So that's what he would do. And then my freshman year is when I noticed a shift in my relationship with my mom. I felt like we were distant and it was hard to approach her. Over the weekends, my mom would go out and party or go out to bars or clubs, I'm not quite sure. But at this time, if my dad was out of town, I would be watching over my younger two siblings. As time went on, it progressively got worse to a point where I would be watching them for a whole weekend while she was out, and then when she would come back on a Monday morning first day and just take us to school. So it'd be a long period of time. My sophomore year, we found out that we were getting kicked out of our home, and we were to move to Roseville, where we were staying with my uncle and his girlfriend at her house. This meant commuting from Roseville to Auburn, and with my mom going out and partying more and more, it meant that she would come home in the mornings to take us to practice, but a lot of the times it would end up making us late, which was super frustrating for me because at this point I took school and soccer very important. They were very important to me, so when she would make me late, I looked bad to my teachers, and then I would be frustrated with the whole situation. One day we came home from a long day of just school and soccer. Because we were living in Roseville, we would stay in Auburn for that whole time up until we had to go back home. And one day we got back and found ourselves to be locked out of the house. Our keys didn't work. I guess they switched locks. And no one was home, and our dogs were missing, which freaked me out even more. Although I don't know exactly what happened, I know that many priceless items were lost within this situation. Things from soccer trophies to pieces of clothing, which don't matter that much, but we ended up having to go to my aunt's house, where we stayed for a while until my dad found an apartment to rent out. At this point, my mom was around less and was not working at the time, so when she was around, she'd be sleeping a lot. One day, one of my aunts called me asking if I knew where my mom was or if I'd talked to her recently, because she needed to know when my mom would be there to pick my little brother up from her house, because he had stayed there for that weekend while my mom was away. When I called my mom, she didn't answer. I went straight to voicemail. I called a few more times thinking maybe she was sleeping somewhere. Still hit voicemail. So I resorted to calling my dad, who was out of town at the time, to figure out what to do with the situation. This is when he told me that he thought that she might be in jail. And this came to a total shock to me. I knew my mom was up to something. I knew it wasn't good, but I just didn't, I guess I was in denial. I didn't know the extent of what she was doing. But I couldn't believe it, and I became kind of angry, I guess, with her, because I just couldn't believe how selfish she could be when she had us all home. For 2 months, my mom was away in jail, and I was taking care of my brother and sister when my dad was gone. So, we would get them up in the morning, and then we would get to school. Afterwards, my cousin would pick my little brother up because he got out of school earlier than we did, and drop him off when we got home. The hardest parts of these 2 months were probably my little brother, who was 8 at the time, extremely confused and asking questions of just wondering when she would be home, why she wasn't there. The second hardest thing was just that I was in high school and it was homecoming week at one point, and I was nominated for homecoming queen, which is, for some reason, thought it was a huge deal. At the time, not that big of a deal, I guess. But at the time, it was important to me, and everyone was writing down who was taking them, escorting them to the field, as in your family members, your parents, and I didn't have my mom or dad there, so I resorted to asking my aunt to come with me. But it was just hard to know that neither of them were there at that point. When she got out, after those 2 months, she was asked to find a rehab facility to get into, and The problem with this was that our insurance didn't cover the rehab, and rehab was too expensive for my family to afford at the time. So she tried going through the state to get funding for it or to have it paid for, and because she had already been sober for the 2 months she was in jail and was going on 3, they wouldn't give it to her. So this meant that she had to go back to jail. So for another 4 months, the same kind of idea was happening. My aunt got my little brother signed up for Boys and Girls Club, which allowed my sister and I, to pick my little brother up after we got out of our soccer practices or out of school. So we were kind of rushing sometimes, because after soccer practice we get out around 5:30ish, and the Boys and Girls Club would end at 6, so that was a stressful time for me. A lot of people were thinking about where they were going to college, or their boyfriends that they wanted to have or had, and those kind of problems. And at that time I was more worried about how I was gonna get to my little brother, or how I was gonna get us to where we needed to be, or what we were eating at night, or whatever. Although I did have a lot of family help, my grandparents would always have us over. My dad would always transfer money, so we were never like without money. And my aunt and my cousins would help as well. It was just something that I guess I was not ready for, but it was kind of put into the situation. So with senior year coming to an end, my decision for college was kind of based off of how close to home I would be. So I chose to go to Sierra, which was about 20 minutes away from where I was living at the time. But at this point, I didn't think I was going to be playing soccer anymore. Until my senior night, when I realized how much soccer has helped me through everything that I've done, and how much it meant to me, I guess. So I contacted Jason, and we set up an appointment to be able to figure everything out and get my classes all sorted out and get myself registered. That's when I believe I either met with Aaron or Ryan, but we got all my classes sorted out, which was super helpful, because my parents never went to college, so I didn't even know how to approach that whole thing. So having them there was, I don't even know. If they weren't there for me, I don't think I would have continued school. At this time, Jason kind of he just had a way of like pulling things out of me without even meaning to, I feel like, because he would ask me how life was going, and then everything that was going on within my life was just out on the table. But I'm grateful for that, because at the same time, as much as I didn't like sharing those kind of things about myself, it helped me because he was able to guide me into the right direction. My freshman year at Sierra, my transition was just poor, and I ended up failing out of 2 of my classes. Just juggling soccer, school, and work was difficult for me, and I hadn't figured out a way to manage my time. So Jason sat down with me after that semester and asked me like what was going on, how he could help, how we could get through this, all that kind of things. And that's when we decided to get all my classes sorted out through him and Aaron. And then I was back on track the next semester. Actually, the rest of my time at Sierra, I've been able to keep a high grade after that. I haven't failed any classes. So I came back from that, and I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going after that. second year at Sierra, because of that, we decided that I should redshirt, which was difficult just watching my team play, but not being able to actually participate within it. And the next year came around and I was able to play, but I ended up not playing as much as I anticipated, especially after my freshman year, where I played a good amount of time. This was difficult for me just because I knew that the people who should be on the field are the people who are the best out there, but for me it was hard to just sit the bench knowing that I was eligible and I was able to play now, but I couldn't. But I did take on a role as captain, and we made it to I'm sorry for this, we almost made it to the Final Four. So it was a pretty successful season for us, and I'd just like to thank everyone here for listening to my story, and again, my parents, my siblings, Jason, Rachel, Aaron, all of you for helping me through my time at Sierra. Thank you.